Hi, this is Adam Eliel Berkowitz from Israel365 News coming at you from the Golan. I'm here with the head of Israel365, Rabbi Tuly Weisz. He's here to make an amazing announcement just in time for Passover. So, Rabbi Weisz, why don't you just jump in and tell us what this amazing announcement is?
It is an amazing announcement. Thank you, Eliyahu. It's good to be with you. And we're very proud to release today a brand new Haggadah for Passover, a Haggadah Shel Pesach, as we call it in Hebrew, a Passover Haggadah. And it's an amazing thing. I'll tell you all about it. I'll show it to you.
If I can make one quick comment, Haggadah literally means to tell. And the main thing about Passover is just to tell the story to the kids. This unbroken generational link all the way back to Mount Sinai. And whatever you can, and whatever it's, we all heard it from our parents, and whatever we can do to make the story better for our children makes it even better, makes the mitzvah even better.
Yeah, well, it's a good point. The Passover Seder is the oldest ritual in Judaism. It might even be the oldest and most longstanding ritual in Western civilization. We've been doing the same Passover Seder since the Exodus, literally since the Exodus. We told the story
since before the Exodus, actually.
Right.
Before we left.
Right, absolutely. So you're, okay, but it's a good point. The book is called a Haggadah, okay, Haggadah, Haggadah, and it comes from the word lehagid, to tell the story, because it says in Exodus that you shall tell over the story of God taking you out of Egypt every year, and that's what we do. We tell the story in the Haggadah, and the ceremony though that we have on Passover is called the Seder, and Seder means the order. And there's a very specific order that we go in. And certainly the Passover Seder is something that every Jewish family does. But what's interesting, and we talk a lot about this on Israel365 News, is how many non-Jews also celebrate the Passover Seder every year and read the Haggadah.
Okay. So what did you bring for us? I also want to point out that you're coming at this. You just put out an unbelievable Megillat Esther, a book of Esther for Purim, that was amazing. It was received amazingly by so many people. It was beautiful, and it was in the memory of Esther Horgan. So this Passover Haggadah,
I have one right behind me. The Esther Horgan, the Book of Esther, exactly.
Oh my gosh!
We just released this a few weeks ago, and we immediately got started on our Passover Haggadah. And similarly, we found that with the Scroll of Esther, everybody needs one to observe the holiday properly. However, the fact that it was dedicated in memory of Esther Horgan provided a really important aspect to the whole initiative. And so similarly, the Israel Bible Passover Haggadah is dedicated in memory of a soldier who was killed this year. And unfortunately, even one is too many, but only one IDF soldier was killed in the entire year in the line of duty, which, thank God, is a lot less than in previous years. And last May, so right after Passover, there was a mission that involved going into a Palestinian village in order to make to arrest a cell of terrorists. And the Golani brigade was called in for that. It is a dangerous mission whenever you're going into hostile territory. So they made the arrest. The unit was on their way out, and unfortunately, a large rock was hurled at one of the soldiers from the top of a building, and it hit 21-year-old Amit ben Yigal on the head, and he was taken to the hospital, but he was killed. And Amit was a 21-year-old, but very special young man who was so committed to the Israeli army and to the people of Israel that he volunteered for service. You know, there's a rule in the Israeli army, not everybody is aware of this, but if you are the only son in your family, then you are exempt from combat service, from a combat unit. And so he was, of course, exempt. He was the only son to his father, and he was exempt, but he was very committed to serving in the army in what he considered to be the most important way. And he really wanted to join a combat unit, and he asked his father for permission. And originally his father didn't want to give him permission because his father's name is Baruch, and Baruch said, Baruch in Hebrew means a blessing. So he said that, you're all I got, you're all I have. My parents are no longer alive. He wasn't married, he was divorced. And he said, you're all I have, I can't lose you. And Amit, his young son, pushed, and he just really wanted to join in a combat unit. And so reluctantly, his father gave permission. And unfortunately, 2 months before Amit was supposed to be released from his service, before his service was ending, he was killed. And that was about 10 months ago. So within the year, just under a year. And so we were in touch with Baruch, the father, and we dedicated this Passover Haggadah to Amit's memory. And if you allow me to share the screen, I would love to show you, Eliyahu, what it looks like. Do you see it here?
Yeah.
Let me know.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the
the
Israel Bible
Haggadah.
Passover Haggadah in memory of Amit ben Yigal, introduction by Baruch ben Yigal. So Baruch, he wrote an introduction. It's very special. I'll show it to you. And the dedication, of course, with sadness, admiration, and gratitude, the Israel Bible Passover Haggadah is dedicated to memory of Staff Sergeant Amit ben Yigal. So everything, we have a lot of pictures of him in here. And we also have this, like sort of like a poem. It's a post that he wrote on Instagram, and it's called "Regardless of What Happens," where he talks about what it's like to be in Golani. Golani is a very challenging unit, and it talks about the grueling physical tests that he had to go through to be in the Golani. And here at the end, it says that that I'm with his team, I'm with these other men who, regardless of what happens, you are forever a part of. And, unfortunately, we know what he meant by regardless of what happens. And he is forever a part of his colleagues in the Golani brigade. This is an introduction that his father wrote. And it's very, very meaningful, very inspiring, and very, very hard to read, very sad. And then, of course, we get into it, and it's really dedicated to these ancient and modern Jewish soldiers, because the first thing that the Jews did when they left Egypt, God tells them, is, and I think it's here, is it here? The first thing that they're told is to establish an army. That was the first thing that they had to do, is establish an army. And so, from that first Passover, the role of a Jewish army has always been so important. Let me continue going through. Eliyahu, certainly there's a lot of articles and essays here in the beginning, and then we explain the Seder, the order, the 15 steps in the Seder. And of course, here's more pictures of Amit ben Yigal. And then, of course, the first one is Kadesh, to make the Kiddush, the blessing over the wine. Of course, everything that the Israel Bible we produce, we have it in Hebrew and in English, so that people can follow in the original language or learn Hebrew, or just read it in English if that's easier. And it's lined up side by side. And then we have all these great pictures of the Israeli army throughout history. This is David Ben-Gurion and Moshe Dayan inspecting a military parade in 1955. We have all kinds of commentary, notes here on the bottom, special study notes that really explain the Seder, explain the Haggadah, and really explain the role of Israel and the army specifically. We have instructions here, at this stage in the Seder, Yachatz, we break the middle matzah, so we have an illustration, and we try to explain to people what's going on in the Seder. But it's really, it's an incredible work full of like these amazing pictures of the IDF and a great commentary. And the final thing is that we commissioned our own translation. This is a unique and original and very readable translation that we have here as well. So I think that whoever you are, Jewish, non-Jewish, religious, not religious, you'll get a lot out of the Israel Bible, Passover Haggadah.
I love that it's connected to modern Israel. It's not so many Haggadahs are. A lot of them, there's a lot of different styles of Haggadahs. There's cartoons. I have a couple cartoon ones for the kids, and the kids always argue about who gets which one. But I really like that this one is really connecting the holiday to modern Israel.
Right.
And that's very special. That's something that you don't always see. Like in a very not only connecting it to modern Israel, but in a very personal way, connecting it to the one soldier who we should remember and who is very important right now.
Right.
That's very special.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think that, look, we are told, right, that we have to relive the Passover story as if it happened to each and every one of us. We have to put ourselves in their shoes and their footsteps. And I think that in this way, kind of drawing attention to the modern miracles of the Jewish people, it allows us really to do just that, and to expand and make it as relevant as possible.
Yeah. Relevant, meaningful. I mean, to read the story of the young man, to see him actually standing there with his father, to see the other young men, that's actually, is that one photo where the soldiers are going through the alleyway? That's the way he was killed, if I'm not mistaken. Was he was walking through an alleyway with his fellow soldiers. It really, it's impossible to look at that and not be affected. Not wow.
Yeah, and there are a lot of really great Haggadahs out there, but this is really, I think, one of a kind, very unique, especially those who love Israel and whose sort of their Judaism or even their their Christianity is really expressed by or fulfilled by a love for the people of Israel and the land of Israel. This Haggadah is really something that that you're going to want to use at your Passover Seder.
I always feel strange at the end of the Haggadah. It says next year in Jerusalem, and I'm like, I always feel like, we're in Jerusalem this year. I may not be in Jerusalem, but I'm in the Golan, and I think that real connection, that we have such a huge merit to be in an era where we can connect to Israel in a very real way, and not just in a theoretical way or a spiritual way. I think it's a huge merit that should be emphasized throughout the holiday.
Right.
Through this, wow.
I'm just trying to show. I mean, it's 220 pages.
You're bringing back some rough memories for me. How my feet hurt. It all looks very pretty, but when you're going through the training, it can be really rough.
I just wanted to show you this page here. Next year in Jerusalem. Yeah.
There you go.
So
there you go.
And we talk about, like, why is it, what do you mean we are in Jerusalem? We're in Israel. What are we actually asking for? And what we're asking for is the temple. So much in the Passover story, Passover Haggadah, is describing the temple. I mean, it's unbelievable. And so, as great, as the holiday is, and as great as we have it today, we still don't have the temple, and therefore we're no matter, even if whether we're saying the Seder in New Jersey or Ohio or Australia or Jerusalem, we all say next year in the rebuilt Jerusalem, because we're really praying for the ultimate redemption with the third temple.
Hmm. Hmm. And the mitzvah of having an Israeli army, it's really it's something very special. I think it's we're assigned to the world that this is what the Jewish people really are. We are people, not that we're militaristic or but everything about being a nation has to be sanctified to God from it's not just in the synagogue. It's our soldiers, our our buses, everything about Israel has to be sanctified to God, and this very clearly sanctifies this aspect to Hashem and to the mitzvah of leaving Egypt and coming into freedom, real freedom in Israel. I mean,
Right.
that is the essence of the holiday.
That's the essence of the holiday. And exactly, leaving slavery for what purpose? Obviously, for receiving the Torah, for becoming the light into to a kingdom of a nation of priests and a holy nation, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, and then all, of course, ultimately entering the land of Israel. That was the goal of Egypt. That was the goal of Passover, and so there's such a strong link with Israel to the holiday of Passover, but not everybody focuses on it. I know that in my family, actually, my grandfather did go out of his way in our Seder when I was a child. Uh, he was a rabbi. He was the rabbi of the community in Columbus where I was from, but on Passover, of course, we just knew him as Zaidi. He was our grandfather, and he ran a Seder like nobody ran a Seder, and it was just like so enthusiastic and passionate and exciting. And it didn't matter if we finished at midnight or 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. His voice was booming throughout, and he would kind of keep everybody engaged and keep everybody keeping up with him. And then when we were done, he would stand up and he would say, like, everybody, we're gonna now sing Hatikvah. And we sang
Really?
Hatikvah. Yeah, that was how we would end our Seder, with a singing of Hatikvah, and sort of as a tribute to him.
Did you put that in? Did you put that in this Haggadah?
So yeah, we actually did.
Did
So
oh,
here's the last page, and then we said we include the Hatikvah also
oh,
in
that's so
Hebrew,
sweet. That
English.
is so sweet. So we're actually following in the Rabbi Tuly Weisz tradition.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's very, very sweet.
And we have
Wow.
other prayers here. The prayer for the welfare of Israel's soldiers, of course. Prayer for the state of Israel, and other things like this that appear in the Israel Bible, like these very useful
Hmm.
charts, Hebrew months and their holidays. We have something here that's also a map of modern day Israel and its neighbors. We have a really fascinating table or chart, Israel's exiles, persecutions, and wars, because if you think
Wow.
about it, the Exodus was the first exile. However, we have had a whole series of exiles throughout our history. Some of them are mentioned in the Tanakh. The first 5 are mentioned in the Bible, in the Book of Kings, in the Book of Chronicles, and Daniel. But so many, but then our history continued and went beyond that. Um, so
So this isn't just a simple Haggadah that has just the words that every other Haggadah has. That's really amazing.
yeah,
It's
there's a
it's
lot.
another thing on Passover night. If you do it right, you really do have time to sit and do a lot more than just read the words that are in the book. So it's nice to have a lot of stuff that you can say, oh, look at what I have here. Look at this. That goes on a lot at because we have a lot of different Haggadahs. That goes on a lot at my little Seder. Everyone's
Uh,
sharing what they have in their Seder, what they have in
yeah.
their Haggadah.
Do you have? Are there any stories, Eliyahu, that you tell at your Passover Seder that that you go out of your way to repeat them every year?
Well, there's actually two. One is I was doing the army once, and we were doing this huge exercise, Selim, a big base down in the Negev, and it was a serious exercise with live fire, and we were shooting RPGs and mortars, and it was also time for all of us to get to know what it was like to work together. And there was a new guy in the unit, was not religious, and they also brought in some new guys from a yeshiva unit that were religious. And this is like one of those frameworks where people from different parts of Israeli society get together. And the non-religious guy, he was making fun of the religious guys, and he said, how do you guys know? I mean, all these silly stories, and it was just before Pesach. He's like, all these silly stories, Mount Sinai, the plagues, this is silly stuff. And there was this little Yemenite guy who was so sweet, and he just turned around and he said, no, of course it's true. And he's like, how do you know? How do you know? There, you don't have any, video records and anything. And he's like, well, my Abba told me. And I saw his Abba tell him, and he wouldn't lie about that. And that's really the most powerful way. And he really convinced the guy. The guy was like, whoa, well, yeah, my father told me. And he's like, so don't you believe him? And he's like, well,
Right.
yeah, yes, I do. So it was really, I saw this happen in the army. It was very powerful. And I also remember, and if I can say this without crying, my father, when he realized he was leaving the world, I went out to visit him, and I was there for Pesach, and it was just me and my wife and my 2-year-old daughter and my Abba and my Ima. And I said to him, okay, I want you to teach me how to do the Seder. And he said, I really can. I'm just not up for it. He was not well. And so the whole night he said, okay, why don't you sit at the head of the table and lead the Seder? And I said, Abba, I can't sit at the head of the table. That's your chair. But I'll lead the Seder in the name of learning how. So we did the Seder, and every few minutes I'd lean over, I'd say, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? And he'd say, yeah, you're doing great. Keep going. And that was the last Seder I had with my Abba. And I learned it was a one-on-one tradition that he transferred to me in a direct and powerful way. And that tradition of just telling the story, it's with me, and I tell the stories to my kids. And if they know anything, they know this one thing, that we came out of Egypt, that God brought us out of Egypt, and he brought us to come into Eretz Israel. And that's one-to-one, as close as you can get and as real as you can get.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
Beautiful. I know that in my family, we always tell my grandmother's story, and it was 1942 or 43, and she was living in Europe. The Nazis were all over Europe, and her father was already taken from the family for forced labor. They didn't know if they would ever see him again, and they didn't ever see him again. He was in his 40s. He was basically my age. The mother also, her mother, my great-grandmother, I think was also around 40 years old, and was raising 6 children by herself, terrified. But Passover, and the holiday came, and they had to make a Seder. And so they did the best that they could under the very difficult circumstances. And we know that there's a part of where of the Seder, and they did that. They opened the door, and again, they were in, I guess, like a Nazi-occupied Hungary at the time, and in walked 2 Nazi soldiers into their house late at night, into a family with 6 young children. The mother of the home was 40 years old, and anything could have happened. But my great-grandmother kind of was, I guess, quick on her feet and quick thinking, and she...
Oh my goodness, I lost that last part. I'm sorry, I lost that last part, the most important part of the story.
So basically my great-grandmother was quick thinking, so she immediately took the wine that was on the table there's, of course, 4 cups of wine. She gave all of the extra wine to the soldiers, and she said, here, here's wine, take our wine, leave us alone. And they took the wine, they closed the door, they left them alone, and they, I guess, moved on. But so it really was a miracle that they could have done anything, and they didn't. So that's a story that we tell every year at the Seder.
Wow. You use the term forced labor, but it's basically slavery. So once again, the Jews were in slavery, which was another horrible aspect of that time in history. Okay.
So thank you for the opportunity to share our new Haggadah. It's available at the Israel365.com. Israel365.com/Passover. Take a look, check it out. And I think everybody will really like it. So also it's important to mention that all of the proceeds of the sale of the Israel Bible Passover Haggadah are going to go to the Israel365 Lone Soldier Center. We have a new home for soldiers in Israel, and so all of the proceeds will go to supporting lone soldiers of the IDF.
Oh man, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Rabbi Tuly. I'm sure I'll speak to you before Passover. We have editorial meetings before then.
To all of our listeners, have a happy Passover and enjoy with your family and friends. Let us know what you think of our new Haggadah.
Oh man, thank you so much, Rabbi. Thank you so much, Rabbi Tuly. This has been Rabbi Tuly Weisz, Adam Elio Berkowitz from Israel365. Be blessed. If you bless us, we have no choice, but we have to bless you. That's the way it's written. That's the way it works. Have a great holiday. Thank you so much.